Live from Miami, Florida.
I am Linda.
And I am Bella.
And this is our podcast, Mostly Peaceful Latinas, where every week we will discuss current events, politics, pop culture,
and everything else related to the state of the clown world. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Mostly Peaceful Latinas. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I am your host, Bella.
And I am Linda.
And today we're going to be going over some of the most newsworthy headlines.
Clown world headlines.
But before we start, can we take a minute to celebrate us?
We're celebrating. We're definitely celebrating one of our biggest accomplishments. 4 episodes in, people. 4
episodes in, and Nayib Bukele, the president of El Salvador, tweeted out our 4th episode. And I don't know how to act. I know Linda doesn't know how to act. When Linda called me to tell me that it was
First of all, she was cleaning her bathtub like a peasant.
Like a peasant on my knees, scrubbing the bathtub. And I look at the floor, I look at the text, and I'm like, wait a minute, why am I cleaning bathtubs right now? There's a president tweeting me out.
Yeah, it really took us by surprise. It was around Friday, 7 p.m. and my phone's blowing up. My friend who lives in El Salvador, and he's like, this is not a good time to not pick up your phone. And I see that what's up message, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? And then I see the tweet, and I'm blowing up her phone, and she's just not answering. And I'm like, she's probably taking a nap. What is going on? But that was one of her, obviously, very new YouTube channel. And it has been overwhelming, the amount of support that people have given us.
I'm just so taken back. Number one, how grateful are we to that President Bukele would even sit through our podcast, much less highlight us, right? So that was such a win. But you know what, Linda? I think that it's been such a testament to why we wanted to start this podcast, right? Because we felt that there was such a void in the representation of Latinos in the media to actually give voice to counter the mainstream media lies that we know we're constantly pumped with. And I don't know about you, but one of the things that has just been so overwhelming to me is seeing hundreds of responses from Salvadorians thanking us for speaking truth. That's all. We're so grateful that you would speak the truth. I know that we highlighted some of the comments because honestly, it was just the most rewarding part of it. Yes, it's great to get highlighted by a based president at that.
The coolest dictator.
The coolest. But the gratitude that we've received from regular people that are just so grateful for truth, to see English-speaking media talk about the truth about who Bukele is. I mean, that in itself has been such a gift and has been such a, I guess, confirmation
of why we started this. And, you know, we don't really know what we're doing. I mean, we're trying to figure it out. But to see so many comments on Twitter, on YouTube, on Instagram of people saying, wow, what a refreshing conversation that these 2 young ladies had. And I think what stuck out the most to me was that people kept saying they did their research, they did their investigation. And it's one of the things, there's a Salvadorian YouTuber, his name is Tecnoboca. Thank you so much.
Shout out to Tecnoboca.
Muchísimas gracias por habernos colocado en tu podcast, porque no lo conocíamos. And we were really shocked by that. He has 340,000 followers on YouTube, huge political commentator of his country. And that's one of the things that he said. He said, it's not because they're talking well or good about our president. It's the fact that they took the time to research thoroughly every single point. And we really did this just because we've been talking about him for so long, and we did not expect this to be the outcome. But with that being said, I just kind of wanted to pull up a few of the comments.
Let's pull up some. It's so funny because Linda and I did not pick the top comments together. No. We kind of said, all right, you collect some, I'll collect some. And then when we met up, we had the same comments that had stuck out to us.
So here's one from, who's this? His person is Marco Mendez. I love your podcast. You girls are amazing. I'm Salvadorian, and I saw that Nayib tweeted about your channel, and I love it for sure. I wish you all the luck in the world. Ladies, excellent analysis. Great job. My wife and I were just in El Salvador in January for a month on vacation. I did not recognize my parents' country this time around. much cleaner, much safer. People are happy with the president. The beach, the tourism was so modernized. Everything Bukele does is legal and within their constitution. I see El Salvador becoming another Costa Rica if Bitcoin remains and buenas and nuevas ideas can stay in power. So, there's another one that's so funny. He says, I beg you, please keep talking about the president. We need more English videos and you girls are perfect. So these are just 2 or 3 out of the many that we got. And we're just so excited. And for sure, I think that.
And not just us. Can I just say, my dad is so excited.
Yeah.
My parents are through the roof.
Absolutely. We also got some media hits by a couple of local, I guess, independent journalists and news outlets in El Salvador because the president tweeted it out. So it's been amazing and we're so grateful. Muchísimas gracias a toda la gente de Salvador que vio nuestro video, escuchó nuestro podcast. Seguimos recibiendo comentarios hasta ahora. Hace 2 horas vi todos los comentarios de YouTube y seguía a la gente diciendo lo mucho que les gustó este podcast. Así que muchísimas gracias.
Y muy agradecida a las dos por, la oportunidad también de darnos atención y, bueno, viendo de qué manera podemos seguir ayudando a hablar lo que es la realidad del pueblo salvadoreño.
100%. So with that being said, we're moving on to our first headline, which is that we have a Ministry of Truth. So if people saw Harry Potter, I know that's kind of like a controversial thing, but there was this...
Wait, go back. When did Harry Potter become controversial?
With the Christians.
I guess you're right. Yeah, you're right.
It's like witchcraft or whatever. But it's funny because there was this Professor Umbridge. I think it was in the 3rd movie or something like that. But there was the Ministry of Truth. And this was a thing. And a couple of my followers was like, oh my God, we're going to get, the head of this new disinformation department it's going to be just like Professor Umbridge. And I was like, holy crap, that's so true. But yeah, so immediately after Elon Musk secures the bag with Twitter and, he places his bid, he wins or he does the hostile takeover insurrection at Twitter. Literally, it was an insurrection.
Right.
So the Biden administration comes out and says that they were going to have a disinformation governance board that's going to be part of Homeland Security, which is pretty scary if you ask me, and I'll go into detail as to why, to counter misinformation. And by now we know that everything that the Biden regime doesn't like, and even before Biden took over, the Democrat establishment doesn't like, it's misinformation.
It's not just the things they don't like, anything that's inconvenient for them, anything that exposes them, everything is misinformation.
So,
I think about my own family's escaping communism, like a Ministry of Truth. So, so we've got state-funded media then. We've got state-funded...
Well, the media's already, that's why they're so mad, right? Because they had control of Twitter. So people would argue all the time, and I just got into a back and forth with a constitutional lawyer where she's like, well, Twitter's not going to give you back your free speech. And I'm like, no, well, I don't think people think that. But I do think that Twitter was being used by the DNC, by the Democrats and the establishment in Washington, D.C., as a means of state media.
Yep.
Hunter Biden laptop, everybody else that they've censored that they just don't like, they did it to Trump. We already went through this a couple episodes ago, but immediately they come up with this disinformation governance board, and this is what it's supposed to do, or what they said it's going to be in charge of. It says that they will counter misinformation related to Homeland Security, specifically on irregular migration in Russia. In addition to that, they are also going to tackle Hispanic misinformation, Latino media misinformation ahead of the midterms. Why is that? Because they're bleeding within the Latino community.
It's scared.
With the Latino population. A recent poll that just came out 2 days ago says that 52% of Latinos, obviously within the polling Americans that they polled, will vote or will back up a Republican candidate in the midterms. So what do? You start censoring truth. And that actually started immediately after the 2020 elections. If you remember, there was all these headlines about Latino misinformation. There was 2 Democrats down here that
that
were
was
writing.
immediate. I mean, do you remember the meltdown hours after the election about the Cuban vote down here in Miami? It was an entire meltdown, and they realized, like, we messed up. Like, Latinos are not jiving with what it is that's going on. So yeah, you're right. Immediately after is when they started attacking, and we know it because we know that local, because we're in Miami, and there's such a high demographic of Latinos here. There is a lot of sources of Spanish media that are out there that our grandparents listen to and our parents listen to that are at least we don't necessarily listen to.
They're talking about the grandmas, the old Cuban grandmas are now like
they have been listening to these radio stations for years, for decades. Radio Mambi has been heard in my house for decades, and now they're taking these staples, and because again they're feeding truth, because it's getting harder to believe their absurdities and a lot easier to become misinformation agents by spreading the truth. Now they're trying to silence, like, even these dusty AM radio stations that our grandparents listened to. They're even trying to gain control over that. The thought police, I mean, it's 1984. The thought police is in absolute full effect.
Just to make sure that we just said the 1984 reference is that they asked Mayorkas, right, who's the main guy at Homeland Security. They asked them, what do you think about this Republican reaction that they're calling this governance board 1984, 1984,
right,
whatever. And his response was that they didn't need to worry, that we didn't need to worry, because this is not going to infringe on free speech, nor does it infringe on civil liberties. That, this is this information why it's part of Homeland Security is because it's something that would affect us as far as national security. But they can make anything up.
They already have.
Anything.
It's the same way. I mean, we're getting now it's the fact checkers that we dealt with in 2020 on our social media are now going to be run by the government. That's basically where it is that we're at. You mentioned the laptop. It is very concerning that Nina Jankowicz, I really don't care if I'm mispronouncing her name, who's been selected to lead this Ministry of Truth, called the Hunter Biden laptop a Trump campaign product.
Russian misinformation.
Yep. Just a method and a strategy to win an election. A laptop filled with which we know sensitive information that makes the first family, that puts the first family in a vulnerable position where they can have the stuff on this laptop leveraged against them to influence international decisions.
Absolutely. And, obviously our people went to work as soon as she was announced as the head of this department. Conservatives went back on Twitter to see, anything that she said in the past. And so last year, she had, I guess, like a study or some sort of research group about gender abuse. And it was mostly focused around Democrat women. So Kamala Harris, AOC, Ilhan Omar. And in a way, she was or based on her research, she was saying that these women get abused so much online, and that the social media companies are not doing enough to protect this specific gender. By the way, what is a woman?
They can't even define it.
Now, all of a sudden, we care about, biological women. And so you can tell this is a partisan political hack. Obviously, somebody that is a Democrat, a social justice warrior, and this is who's going to lead our Ministry of Truth.
I mean, does anything shock us anymore? I mean, I was under no impression that we were living with free speech. No impression that we were living with free speech. So, yeah, I mean, why not a Ministry of Truth? Why not a gulag at this point, quite frankly? I mean, when we're looking at this reality that we're forced to.
But you know what they're coming after? Memes. So we know that the meme warfare
is real.
Has been extremely efficient and extremely effective especially during the 2016 election, before the era of mass censorship. And so with this analysis or this research that Nina did back in 2021, she identified something called maligned creativity, and she's referring specifically to memes. And this is what she says.
I'll break this down.
So let me break this down. Nina says that this is a sort of a code language in which users can hide their racist, sexist, transphobic, or other harmful content by use of memes so that such posts can avoid moderation teams and bans. Code word, they're coming for our memes because they're effective. So no, seriously, like they've been trying this for a very long time.
So this part of I think you had explained it to me earlier, which was like it's meme warfare. So basically, if you're too smart for your own good, which means that maybe you're being sarcastic or maybe not being upfront about what it is that your meme says. Give us an example, Linda. What's an example of Kamala Harris? What's an example of one of the memes that they're referring to?
Well, she didn't specify any memes. What she did specify in terms of the gender, what is it called? Gender abuse, right? This is what she says. She says, gender abuse and disinformation and terrifying widespread. Of our 13 subjects, 12 faced gender abuse and 9 faced gender disinformation. The overwhelming majority of abuse was posted on Twitter and targeted at Kamala Harris. And then she has this hilarious little, we'll pull it up now. This is not a meme, but this is just kind of like the overall, like the words that she found in her research. And this is what she found.
This is a shout out to you guys, to all the meme makers out there.
So the mistress, Kamala, deep fake, horizontal Harris, headboard Harris, Joe and the Ho, heels up Harris, Kamala Sutra, heels up Kamala Sutra, stretching Gretchen. I think that's for Governor Whitmer. So we have someone who literally has dedicated, I guess, her time and her efforts to research meme tactics online of dissidents, against the Biden regime. And now all of a sudden she's part of the Ministry of Truth and she's going to head it. So
she's the person who's going to decide. So yeah, I mean, whatever. We had fact checkers before we had a Ministry of Truth. So welcome to Clown World in America in 2022, everybody. Yeah, that's that. So news coming out of Ukraine because, can't talk about anything except Twitter, Ukraine, and Johnny Depp, basically.
Can I tell you that yesterday when we left, or I forgot which day we were together, but anyways, there's a gas station on Coral Way that now has Cuban, Ukraine, and U.S. flags.
I don't even know what to say about this community sometimes. Like half of the people in this community wouldn't be able to point out Ukraine on a map.
No, absolutely not. It's completely ridiculous. Today there was a Tesla. Earlier today when we were together, there was a Tesla parked with a Ukraine flag as well. So,
beautiful. The ghost of Kyiv,
not real.
Oh, what do you mean?
Dude, honestly, and this is my biggest problem with conservatives, and we've gone through this since the Afghanistan withdrawal. Then you guys believe everything that the right-wing media or people put out. And then you get mad when we say this is propaganda because, but children are dying. Well, nobody ever said that. What we're saying is that your fairy tales and your little stories are not real.
They're not. These people aren't real. The ghost of Kyiv was never real.
The ghost of Kyiv was never real. And basically a story came out and it said that the ghost of Kyiv had finally died and, he was responsible for killing 40 Russian
single-handedly
fighter jets and whatnot. And then Ukraine comes out and they say that this was just a fairy tale.
This is the story that got the Redditors. Morale. This is the story that got the Redditors out of their mom's basement and into Ukraine soil to go fight for Ukraine. It's the fact that it's 2022, that we're so deep into the propaganda, to exposing the propaganda machine, and that people that should know better are still out here falling for the PSYOP every single last time. They're falling from the PSYOP teep and hitting every single sub-PSYOP branch on the way down. That's where we're at right now.
Yep. Also coming out of Ukraine, we just had a Nancy Pelosi, Zelensky a vodka / cocaine meetup, a photo op of these two degenerates. For what reason? We have no idea why Nancy Pelosi and like 3 other Democrats or 4 Democrats were there.
To make it
was really
an
strange.
official handoff of like our billions of dollars.
Right. Like, like, don't worry, we got you. There's a lot of dirt on us here, but we got you. We're going to keep sending money. Like, we don't know where it's going. But there was a whole photo op, and actually Angelina Jolie was there too.
Wait,
I don't know if
what?
you saw that. Not with them, but she's also there because you know how she's
like an ambassador of-
She's an ambassador of the
Right.
war, and she adopts all these kids. But she was there too. And what I found interesting coming from Ukraine as well is that on Sunday there was a video going around on Twitter and on Instagram of AP News, and AP News is literally going with the Ukrainian army into people's homes, into dissidents' homes, and they're arresting these people because under the suspicion or whatever that they're pro-Russia.
Wait, you meant Russia is doing that, right? Because
No.
Russia's the one that's going to go lock, right? That's what you meant?
Well, this is my biggest problem with these people. Like this is my biggest problem, especially with the American right that hates Russia and hates Putin because Fox News has been telling them to do that for the past 30 years. And so their parents passed it on to them, and then everyone's a communist, and they were still in the USSR, and all these freaking, insanity. And Americans are actually making an excuse for this and saying, well, yeah, they're at war. Why would you want to have, dissidents of your country? And I'll say, okay, fair. You're at war, fair. Okay.
Right.
You don't get to say that you're saving democracy, though. You don't get to say that. You don't get to sit here and tell us how they are a democratic country and Russia is not.
Meanwhile, we've got people being pulled out of their homes, and remember that thread that we saw that they took it down. Of course, it was a couple of weeks ago. Again, that they were tying people to trees, they were beating them up, dissidents, and it's real easy to make one figure the bad guy, make Vlad the bad guy, make Trump the bad guy, or whatever it is. Meanwhile, all smoke and mirrors to have you not pay attention to the news that they are not covering, which is that there are a lot of citizens of Ukraine that don't agree with the government and
Right.
that do want to, I guess, that identify as Russians would be a way of putting it.
So, I think that there's enough records of Zelensky being a tyrant and a dictator, banning the opposition TV stations. And again, my problem comes with that is that Americans excuse it because they hate Vladimir Putin. So it's like, why can Vladdy do it, but Zelensky can't? Because you have already chosen in your mind that he's the bad guy and the other one isn't. Here's the thing. Vladdy knows that he's been at war with the deep state for years. So he has been protecting his people for years. It may not sound very democratic. It might not be the way that you like it. But the war didn't start when the first shot was fired. The war started a very long time ago.
And there's been, just the fact alone of villainizing Vladimir Putin and Russia for as long as they have is already part of the attack, because what they've done is that they've programmed the psyche of people so that when there is hostile action towards Vladimir Putin, it's then very easy to write it off as, well, it was needed because this propaganda machine has now been feeding you this disinformation.
It's justifiable. Just
Correct.
like Lindsey Graham was calling for his assassination. I think Sean Hannity too.
Yep.
It's all very weird. And you know what else I found out about recently? On May 2nd, so yesterday, there was the anniversary of a really bad tragedy in Odessa. I think that's how you say it. I may not be saying it right. In Ukraine. So there was a tragedy in 2014 where pro-Ukraine, pro-Russia forces were fighting. This is when the civil war was popping off. And there was all these pro-Russian activists that were trapped inside of a building and burnt alive. And the investigation, obviously, I think for obvious reasons, they keep trying to say, oh, it's this, is that. But many people, or not many people, but there's a lot of reports out there that claim that it was the Azov battalion, the neo-Nazis, these ultra-right nationalists who burned those people alive. And this testimony, it's very similar to many other accounts or many other stories of this extremely gruesome battalion that our federal government is supporting and funding and sending guns to.
And I mean, and let's forget the government, because the government does really crazy things that piss us off all the times. It's the irony of the very people that want to call us Nazis and for having conservative views, waving these Ukrainian flags. I mean, it completely disconnected from the reality of who they're standing by.
And to be fair, it's not all Ukrainians.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Correct. No, absolutely. By no means do we mean all Ukrainians.
But Ukrainians do support Azov, by the way.
Right. So when it's I guess that I always wonder to myself, how much of it is just ignorance? Like just not knowing, not being aware. And then there's the other aspect of it, which is what we've now stepped into with Clown World 2022, which is that these people will then become aware of the facts. And the cognitive dissonance is so intense that they still don't care. And they'll still go out there and call you a Nazi and say that they're going to go and, go fight Russia themselves if they have to.
Absolutely. It's just all weird. You know what else I saw trending? That there is like civil rights groups that are asking Israel to stop funding Azov because they caught pictures of Azov battalion, a neo-Nazi battalion with Israeli guns.
Wait.
I know.
It's so much to make sense of and like have to, I feel like run that by me one more time. So the neo-Nazis.
So Israel, our greatest ally, God's chosen, and the U.S. are funding directly, indirectly, however, the Azov battalion.
Amazing.
Yeah. Amazing. It's simply amazing. You can actually find this on
neo-Naziism. It's all the rage right now.
Jewish publications. So this is not a Linda crazy conspiracy from the internet. You can Google this right now, and you're going to see all of the headlines from Jewish publications specifically about this issue.
Yeah, I mean, it happens right in our face. And again, it's the irony of it, of the same people that are going to watch this episode and be like, they're neo-Nazis and Antifa, and then these are the same people that are out there supporting it. And again, products, useful idiots for the machine. All they need is a hashtag campaign, a video of a crying baby, and
a woman, the pregnant woman that also being not dying. The propaganda has been like nothing I've ever seen, to be honest with you. And the funny thing is that you constantly hear these people say Russian disinformation and Russian propaganda. And I've asked, where is this Russian propaganda that you talk about? Because I follow RT, which is Russian news on Telegram, and I can't watch it there anymore because by law, you can't see the channel there anymore. It's so hard to get anything from Russia when everything is banned.
Yeah, every single thing is limited. And I mean, let's go back to a 2020 election year where everything that was pro-Trump was considered Russian disinformation. So to link this back to the Ministry of Truth, like, where are we getting? Like, how are we ever going to get information out of Russia that we could ever count on when everything is going to be whitewashed to one degree or another?
Well, they call Tucker Carlson a Kremlin puppet and a Putin puppet just simply because he takes a very moderate, fact-based approach on the whole situation. But unless you call for the death of a head of state, you're obviously just a puppet. But yeah, that's that for
Anyways, that's the update on Ukraine, because it was either that or Johnny Depp and Amber, and we weren't going to talk about that. So
I haven't been following up.
Not the headline that we want to keep up with. But the biggest news to break right now is the leak coming out of SCOTUS in regard to Roe versus Wade.
Where do we begin? I mean,
first of all, I mean, we could just cut this up in so many different things, right? So let's talk about the leak. The sanctity of
unprecedented.
Literally
unprecedented. And there's a lot of different conspiracies floating around when it comes to this subject.
I mean, a lot of the theories is that it's not going to be a regular old clerk assistant that did this. Like, nobody would have taken that kind of risk with their career. The idea is that this would have had to have been a direct order from one of the justices. It would have had to have been approved to some degree, because it's a lot easier to believe that somebody would have been acting on behalf of an authority figure than to assume that this, young professional with their entire career ahead of them would just throw that out in order to leak these a few days early, right?
So this is actually what SCOTUS blog tweeted. This is an official SCOTUS blog, and it says, it's impossible to overstate the earthquake this will cause inside of the court in terms of the destruction of trust among justices and staff. This leak is the gravest, most unforgivable sin. And it really is. And it goes to show you, it doesn't shock me. There was a lot of people shocked, right? And I understand, I sympathize with that. It doesn't shock me because I know that we have been infiltrated by communists, and that we have these people at the highest levels in our system, in our society, operating within the Supreme Court justice, everywhere. Yeah. So you literally, this is an Antifa, by the way, and if you go to see all of the Antifa accounts, they're all praising him as a hero. Solidarity, may you never be found, because this is Antifa tactics.
Yeah.
You understand? We need to go back to the era of McCarthyism. That's what we need to do.
Yeah, I think that Antifa's been like a popular topic lately. I just the attack on the sanctity of it, and back to what you were saying about people being surprised. I think that it's one of those things where people really still want to have some kind of hope to hold on to, and they want to believe that it's like, all right, so speech isn't free and the market isn't free and all these other things aren't free, but there's still hope. The justices are not they're not corrupt, and there's the thing that at least that is functioning the way that it should. And then you get a blow like this that lets you know, like, no, guys, at every single level, like Linda just said, there is corruption at every single level. And we already knew that there was corruption within the SCOTUS, because we saw things developing. We saw movements.
We saw the 2020 election and how they didn't want to get involved. I do want to read.
And what they did to Kavanaugh.
Right. I do want to read really quickly part of the leak.
Right.
Part of what Justice Alito had to say in terms of Roe v. Wade, or why it will be overturned. I'm going to say now it's going to be overturned. So he, quote, Roe was egregiously wrong from the start. Its reasoning was exceptionally weak, and the decision has had damaging consequences. And far from bringing about a national settlement of abortion issue, Roe and Casey have inflamed debate and deepened division. It is time to heed the Constitution and return the issue of abortion to the people's elected representative, meaning back to the states. And I think this is a huge misconception from the left, is that they think that abortion is going to be banned, period, end of story. That's not really true. The argument here is that it will go back to the states as it should be, because that's the way that our system is supposed to work. Something else is that you see these people, the left's reaction, and we'll go over a few really funny tweets, but the conspiracy here is, did they leak this ahead of the the midterm elections?
I mean, put on my tinfoil hat. I believe that it absolutely. Alex Jones.
Oh shit! We should bring those next time.
Pop them on. Yeah. Boom. I believe I've seen a trend since the beginning of the year of several different methods of attacking the midterm elections. I think we've talked about this tirelessly. People are fed up. People are going to go out to the voting booth. People are going to vote for people that they know personally. They're going to run for office personally. They're going to vote out these rhinos that ignored them over the last 2-4 years, but particularly over the last 2 years, and they're going to fight it. And I think that, villainizing Trump was easy work compared to having to attack commissioners and mayors and state reps and legislators. So how can they stop what's coming? And I think that, how do you recreate the pandemonium of 2020 after George Floyd? Oh, well,
Well, it's funny
Roe
that
versus Wade is it
Right.
has always been one of the most controversial talking points.
and it's strange that immediately after this happens in Washington D.C., you already have a massive crowd of liberals, and also the pro-lifers were there too, with banners and
They were
signs,
ready.
and they were ready, and they were screaming, and they were doing the little things. So, obviously, they're
The video that I posted that you had sent to me earlier today, which at the end of it, it's a video basically. A woman is trying to drive her underage daughter over the border, and a cop tells her get out. It's a very what's a Handmaid's Tale type of high production value video, and at the end, it stops with the Republicans want to take away your right to choose, take away their right to govern. Oh, I can't even say that without getting chills. Take away their right to govern. This is all political. They know that the race wars incited that emotional response. And they know that the conversation about abortions is going to incite that same very emotional response, which then makes people illogical almost to a point where they don't want to hear logic because it's just a response that comes out innate through emotion. What's most people don't realize this. Jane Roe never had an abortion.
Yeah, it was all a lie.
It was all a lie.
I was just rewatching the video yesterday because somebody tweeted it.
Yeah, it was all a lie. So
it was all a lie. The entire case is based on a lie.
She was not raped, right? Because there's people that say that she was like raped.
No, she said it herself. There's like an old ass interview that you could see her saying like the truth.
Well, she actually went to her deathbed fighting abortion laws. Like she was pro-life.
At the end of her life?
At the end of her life, she was pro-life, and I believe that her daughter, because she had a child, I believe it was a daughter, continues to speak out about being pro-life at this point. So what we were just talking about, propaganda, this has been going on for decades. They propped this woman
get into history.
Yeah, they propped this woman up, propped up her story, gave everybody the hashtag of that point, which was the tear jerker and the empowerment of women, and we're gonna give women their rights, and they propped this woman up to sell you a business of murdering children. Prior to becoming, and we talked about the shift, right? When you first realized that you were on the wrong side of the fight, when you were a Democrat and you switch over. And I always thought that I was pro-choice because I personally was pro-life, but because I'm an American, I always just assumed
it was a libertarian stance.
Correct. Everybody else should have their right to choose. And then I realized that abortion, when I start learning about Planned Parenthood, profiting off cutting up babies like a chop shop and selling them off in pieces and parts and an arm and an eye and an eye. It's like, wait a minute. If these, first of all, government funded.
Never thought about the business side of it. That's why.
It was
never
always
a social issue for us.
Always. So it's not until you start seeing that there's money that you're like, wait a minute. So these people are crying because they want government funds, and then they also want to sell dead babies off in parts. And you realize this is just a business. So when a young girl comes into Planned Parenthood, you're not helping her plan anything. You're not helping her plan a family. You're not helping her look at all of the options that are available. And these are videos that have been leaked that show
so much garbage.
These employees,
Planned Parenthood, it's like insane.
They're trained to steer these girls towards abortions, not because it's going to be better for their overall life, not because they're thinking about the long-term psychological effect that has on women when you make the decision to terminate a pregnancy and to kill your child. They want to, number one, push promiscuity around young people so that they do have unplanned pregnancies, so that you do go into a Planned Parenthood, so that you are advised to kill your child, so that they can sell that child off into little pieces. And they've turned it into a business, and it's a very lucrative business. Absolutely. So of course, these people do not want Roe versus Wade overturned because it's going to cost money. It's not because of your personal women empowerment. It's because it's affecting their pockets.
Well, yeah, it's affecting their pockets. But, going back to the conspiracy theory that this was leaked on purpose for the midterms, is that this is going to fire up the base. Mm-hmm. This is going to make people that maybe didn't want to vote, or those far left extremists, I'm just going to label
Right.
them extremists as well, who don't like the Democratic establishment are going to vote on this issue. The women, there were so many calls to women to vote. And I want to read a couple of tweets because something that I found hilarious, and I went to sleep literally laughing, almost in tears, because the left is blaming everyone. And I mean everyone. Okay, including RBG. Like,
She's dead.
She's dead.
Wait.
They're blaming their idol.
No, tell
like
us. Tell us.
I've seen.
She's got a Netflix special.
She has a Netflix special. And so this is one of the tweets that I found last night. It says Ruth Bader Ginsburg is part of the reason we're even in this mess to begin with, because her old ass kept refusing to retire even after being urged by the Obama administration for the better part of the decade. Make no mistake, the loss of Roe v. Wade is largely her fault. So they're blaming.
Make sure you rest in peace.
They're blaming RBG. They're blaming each other. Right? So they're blaming those Democrats who voted Bernie and then refused to vote for Hillary Clinton. You see what I mean?
So wait, it goes back to Trump?
It goes back, and then obviously the obvious, which is us, F Trump supporters, F Trump, stuff like that. Here's another one. Dear Trump voters, false progressives, Bernie and Bernie or bust fools. You did this to women. We will never forgive you. You took us back to the 1920s, back to the clothes hangers we go. They're like literally
I'm still
demented.
processing. I'm still processing RBG. Like, la pobre RBG, 6 feet underground. Y carga la culpa ahora.
But, also you had the response from the biased media, which we go back to there's no free and fair media, because even if you disagree with this decision, you should just still have a balanced opinion. Here is, I think, a Vox reporter, and this is what he says. Seriously, shout out to whoever the hero was within the Supreme Court who said, fuck it, let's burn this place down. You have the media encouraging this. You have extreme leftists calling for an insurrection. There's a very crazy tweet saying Supreme Court justices are mere mortals and they have names and addresses, just saying.
The fact that they can get away with that, there's nothing is sacred anymore, right?
Nothing
We
is
already know that
sacred
it's like to make a threat against a justice of the Supreme Court. Where these people really do get off. I mean, we don't have the right to protest. We don't have the right to get mad about November 3rd. We can't talk about it. They had their insurrections before. They spent all the summer of love burning down houses, doing all sorts of things. But this is okay.
I mean, it doesn't, once again, I'm not surprised. I wish I was. It's clown world. We have a completely different system where January 6th, detainees or whatever are still in jail, no due process, and then the 2020 Summer of Love people are probably walking free, chilling, and nothing happens to them. So the libs also believe that this is just going down a very dark path for them because it's not going to stop at Roe v. Wade. They think that this is going to go as far as repealing same-sex marriage. There was a congressman, the one that banged Fang, Eric
Swalwell, Fartwell.
He was saying that this is going to trickle down to banning interracial marriage.
Oh, of course.
So I don't know how race got involved all of a sudden. Of course it did, because it's America and it's clown world. But now it's about we're going to ban gay rights and interracial marriage, et cetera, et cetera. They've lost their minds. Here's something else. Here's the conspiracy of who's behind it.
Okay.
Allegedly, supposedly. There's this clerk. His name is Amit Jain. He clerks. He's a very lefty guy, and he's a clerk for Sonia Sotomayor. So they say that because he was a very outspoken person during the Kavanaugh hearings, and they have quoted him in Politico, they believe that this is a person who leaked it. But again, it goes as far as some people think that it was direct orders of a justice or a justice themselves did this. Obviously, we know that we're not going to have any of the 5, conservative justices. So it was any of the other,
Well, I mean, it could. Who knows with the justices? Quite frankly, like who can be, who could have potentially been targeted, and who knows? We never really know. We don't know who the good guys are. We can't say for certain that just because somebody was a Trump appointee that they're necessarily going to do the right thing, because we don't know what the corruption looks like.
They are siding with banning Roe v. Wade. I mean, we're repealing Roe v. Wade. So, of course, it is less likely that Amy Coney Barrett and Kavanaugh or any of these other people, or Alito, for example, would say, which, by the way, today Justice Roberts made a statement saying that they were going to investigate this. You know how those investigations go. Nobody ever. Yeah, exactly. I do think that the way that the Democrats are reacting, which is obviously always extreme, goes to show you that it doesn't matter what Republicans do, right? Republicans always want to take this very moderate approach to things, to not piss off the other side or not seem like they're right-wing extremists or they're accused of being. We had Jenna Ellis, who I'm absolutely disgusted with. I can't stand her. Like, I hated her since
I've hated her since the election.
I hated her since the election. And when DeSantis and the Florida legislature went and said, we're going to repeal this Disney, special tax exemption, blah, 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 the first thing she said was that she disagreed because DeSantis, freedom of speech, blah, 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 and that, hey, Disney, are you looking for a lawyer? Like, I'm willing to take this case on you. First of all, Jenna Ellis is the same woman who said that she was going to leave the Republican Party because they were accepting Caitlyn Jenner. So out of principle, she said that she was going to, I'm no longer part of the Republican Party, blah, 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 blah. So principle for you is that you leave the Republican Party because of Caitlyn Jenner. Fair, right? Your morals, your values, you don't accept this. Cool. I'm good with that.
Right.
But now all of a sudden, you don't have principles and you want to go work on a case for these freaking groomers? Give me a break.
She's a
Give me a break, bro.
Yeah,
Give me a break.
It's the hypocrisy of it.
It's just ridiculous.
Well, she's been annoying the hell out of me since back in November when, clearly we experienced we got to be careful with what it is that we say because we don't know what they're going to take down. When she said, well, that's it. If they stole it, they stole it. And you guys are just going to have to deal with that because never in the history of this country has this ever happened. And there's nothing in the Constitution. It's like, well, shit, man, like... What? Where in the Constitution does it says, like, where are the parameters when you have a whole country stolen from you? And just that kind of idea of like, nope, guys, don't look there. Don't even bother looking there. There's nothing to see there. That just rubs me the wrong way. And I'm not entirely sure where it is that I stand with her. I mean, of course, I do have there is the other theory going around, which is this a strategy to pack the courts?
Another one. And that's what they're calling, if you go down the tweets, aside from ending the filibuster, is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Yeah, my English is not very good looking. Filibuster. Aside from that, they also want to expand the courts. They're calling for the removal of Clarence Thomas. Here's somebody else saying
under what grounds?
We need to get the military involved.
Oh.
A whole coup. Here's this user. She says, Supreme Court is compromised. The military needs to do what they took an oath to do. What does she mean by this? Like, what do you think the military is going to do? They're going to arrest our Supreme Court justices and take into a gulag because they're doing their job, which is to interpret the Constitution. Do you see how demented these people are?
Yes, I do.
They're absolutely insane.
We live in a clown world.
You had Trump's disgusting niece, Mary whatever Trump, saying the illegitimate right-wing majority on the United States Supreme Court. Illegitimate right-wing majority? Are you kidding me?
From a duly elected president? Where are we? This is how it works. These are the rules.
Listen to what she says. The illegitimate right-wing majority on the Supreme Court is pro-rape, pro-incest, anti-women, and anti-child. Are you cool with that?
Again, everything has to be the most extreme possible to incite any kind of emotional reaction, which is what I think that it goes back to. I think that there's very little rulings that the Supreme Court could have made outside of, decertifying our election that would have had the kind of emotional impact that this is going to have for the next couple of months because they're going to push this until the very end, and we're going to hear feminists crying. It's going to be feminists burning down, or the clinics or whatever it is that they're going to be dealing with. And
they're calling for Congress to step in. That's something that Bernie Sanders said. Codify Roe v. Wade into law. What are you talking about? Like,
as the socialist,
it's just these people have absolutely no regard for the American Constitution, for the rule of law, for how it's just
imagine being this upset about not being able to kill children.
I mean, I had a friend text me when it all happened, and she was like, I guess trying to start a fight with the women that she knows are conservative and probably would agree with this. Oh, did you hear what this is happening? And I respond back and I said, well, no, abortion's not banned. It's just going to be up to the state. Well, that's why it's bad. And I obviously I didn't respond back. I just didn't want to argue back and forth. But these are the same type of people that wanted us to be locked down, masked up, forced to take this vaccine. And some of them were as far as saying that we should be excluded from society and higher premiums in insurance, higher insurance premiums. Your doctor shouldn't be able to take care of you if you don't accept the vaccine. So you essentially are only my body, my choice when it comes to, ending the life of another individual. But when it came to the V,
protecting the
your body autonomy, then
you felt like you had a say in what another individual was saying. Nobody your choice at that point.
Have you heard of the new term Christofascist?
No.
It's actually something that I really embraced.
Tell me more.
Being the fact that, they call us fascists.
Yeah.
So if you do a quick Twitter search with the word Christofascist, you're going to find thousands of tweets from left-wing extremists who have adopted this new term, Christofascist, to call the Supreme Court justices Republicans because they believe that we're just trying to turn this country into a theocracy similar to that of the Taliban, similar to that of God knows who else. And there's one, and I won't show it because I will have to go through the thousands of tweets that I saved from last night. But there is one that was so funny, and they said, these are the assistants of the Supreme Court justices, and it was a picture of the Taliban. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
I mean, it's so far so good. It sounds like a great time. Sign me up for Christo.
So everything now is about Christofascists. Here's one tweet from I don't know, another user. Well, your Christofascist Supreme Court has given you your wish, gals. Be prepared to be locked in the kitchen as a breed cow for the rest of your life.
Sign me up.
Careful what you wish for.
Sign me up.
I was like, dude, like,
the dream.
They all think that the Supreme Court is compromised by religious people. That it's all about religion, and it really
has nothing to do with religion.
To do with that at all, and it has everything to do with interpreting the law. So I think that we're going to get into a very interesting summer of love, probably of love part 2. I think that we're going to see once again how biased our entire system, the FBI, the DOJ, etc.
And now with the new Minister of Truth.
If there is protests and if they burn down SCOTUS, the entire building, and if they cause ruckus and if they, just go on their insanity, the chances of them being persecuted at the same extent like the January 6th are like very slim.
Yeah.
Or hear me out, which is something that I remember now. Or they will persecute them because Joe Biden will be the law and order president.
Oh, a little flipperoo in order to gain a little
You
popularity.
see what I mean?
Yeah.
They let him do whatever they wanted during the 2020 Summer of Love because they wanted Trump to look bad. In one side, he looks bad because you have civil unrest, the population are mad, yada, yada, yada. On the other side, if Trump acts like when he did, you're arresting peaceful protesters and you're infringing their constitutional rights. But now that Joe Biden has the media on his side, the media's going to report, well, Joe Biden had to arrest all these people because they were
I think that's really
lawless.
hopeful. I think that's really hopeful thinking, Linda. I honestly just feel
Well,
like
he's
they're
in
just going to
DC.
burn everything down again, and they're just going to be mad and scream and cry about not being able to kill
Maybe
babies.
in the cities they won't do anything, but I think in DC with the regime in charge, they're not. I don't think. I think. They'll
I
be
guess
strict
there's
in
also
DC.
the aspect of how much of what we saw as protests, how much of that was inorganic, right? Because then you have to think like, if they can control the way that protests unfold, is there a possibility that then, they'll just control this as well? I think that it's the leak is definitely not an accident. I do think that it's directly tied to, again, inciting some kind of emotional response, intense emotional response that they could, push through the summer and into the election time. Like you said, in order to, people are not excited after. It's very hard to get excited about, for the Democrats to get excited about any candidate after who they've propped up there as president. And there's so many Republicans who feel like, well, what's the point, or whatever it is. And the point is this. The point is that these people are creating psyops and leaking and all sorts of things in order to in order to hype up their own base, and then leaking misinformation onto the right to make you think that you should stay home and that it doesn't matter if you don't show up to vote. And I think that the 2022 election is probably going to prove, the 2022 election is more important than the 2020 election, because the 2022 election, these midterm elections,
are going to have a lot of defining moments, including the re-election of Governor DeSantis, which, by the way, for those of you who don't remember, I do, because immediately after that, I started my Wake Up with Linda account, is that Ron DeSantis won, and then for a whole week, they contested the election and they continued to find ballots for the degenerate, whatever his name was, Andrew Gillum, in Broward County and in other very deep,
historically
corrupt counties in Florida. And then now Democrats foam out the mouth saying that for you guys don't remember, but Ron DeSantis only won by 25,000 votes. No. Ron DeSantis won by a lot more votes. You guys continue to find votes for an entire week.
Yeah.
Until you couldn't find any more, and you had to finally award him with the governor.
Como siempre, the conversation goes right back to the main topic at hand, which is that nothing is more important than local government and local representation. If people that are very concerned about election integrity, the way to fight election integrity is local. There is thousands of different processes that are followed in this country on how to show up to vote. No two states are alike. No two counties are alike. Everybody has a different process, and because it has a different process, it's very individualized to that community.
Right.
Which means that if you know that you live in a state, or even if you don't live in a state, if election integrity is something that's at the forefront of your mind, then understand that the calling for Dominion machines and overturn the election, all of that is important. I'm not saying that that's not important. What I'm saying is that the way that you fight that is locally, not by going on the internet and bitching about what SCOTUS is doing or Biden is doing. You need to fight those things locally.
Can I tell you some good news to wrap this up too?
I hope so.
I mean, we've had great news. The fact that this is going to be overturned, this is historic. But with that being said, there is a race in a border district in Texas, and Mayra Flores, who's a Latina, is leading the race in a very historically blue district. And we'll talk about her.
We're going to see a lot more of that.
And we're going to see a lot more than that. There's actually a couple of Latinas who are in the border in Texas who are holding extremely well. But, you guys, we're extremely grateful for the overwhelming support. Not just, what we mentioned earlier from El Presi's people, but also from our followers and every single one of you who has been extremely welcoming and
just so supportive, and you guys, the feedback that you give us on the podcast and the work that we're doing. I'm feeling very good about what we're doing with Mostly Peaceful Latinas, and I'm so glad that it's also being enjoyed by all of you guys.
Yeah, and just to, we're wrapping this up, but just to remind everybody to please like, share, and subscribe. We are also on Apple. We are also on Spotify. So, and TikTok.
We're on. Oh yeah, find us on TikTok. We've got some content on TikTok. Our first video went viral. I mean, big things are definitely coming. But yeah, that's gonna wrap up another week of Mostly Peaceful Latinas.
So we'll see you very soon. Thank you so much.
See you guys soon.